InnerQuest explores various pathways through which you can connect with the infinite wisdom of the universe and apply it to personal, professional, and spiritual growth. This program, featuring accomplished practitioners, educators, and authors, is provided by Infinity Foundation, an innovative center for holistic studies and research. We invite you to share this journey with us.
My name is Jay Stone, your host for today, and our guest is Julie Murphy Casserly. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Jay.
Julie is the author of the book, The Emotion Behind Money, Building Wealth from the Inside Out. Julie is a 15-year veteran of the financial services industry and president of JMC Wealth Management. Julie takes a holistic approach to help people achieve abundance in all areas of their life. And I'm holding up your book here so our audience can see. I've looked at your book and I've really enjoyed some of the anecdotes and insights and advice that you have. And you call your publishing company Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. But there's an interesting story about why you self-publish. Can you tell our audience about it?
Certainly. When I first decided to write my book in January of 2007, the publishing firms were all telling me it was going to take 2.5 years to actually get it to print. And I said, no, intuitively, something was telling me that it had to come out sooner. And there was no reason in the world why a financial planner should start a publishing company, but I knew that it needed to come out quicker, and I'm glad that I did, because when I got it out into print in the marketplace, it was August of 2008, and the stock market started crashing in September of 2008.
Now, would you say, since the market crashed, that we need to be aware of the emotions behind money more than before
Certainly.
the crash?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I find very interesting from a money manager's position is that they are now adding behavioral psychologists onto asset management teams.
Why?
Because the middle class is now starting to invest more and more with 401ks and outside of that. And so it's not just the seasoned investor that's making investment decisions. It's now everyone. And human nature is that we have emotion behind our money decisions. And so we need to know how those emotions are affecting the behavior of the overall Wall Street.
And, well, we'll get into a little bit more. But I noticed when your name goes up on the screen, there's a bunch of letters after
Alphabet soup?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can you explain to our audience what
Certainly.
the alphabet soup is?
Absolutely. It's CLU is Chartered Life Underwriter, and then there's CHFC, Chartered Financial Consultant, and then there is Certified Financial Planner, which is the CFP. And I took those designations so that in my 20s, early on, that I could get the knowledge behind how to become a planner in the marketplace.
Have you always been a financial planner?
Yeah, since I came out of college, age 22.
What did you study in college?
I was a finance major. I actually wound up becoming a financial planner because I paid my own way through college, because as I was telling you earlier, I am the second oldest of 12 children, and I paid for my way through school, and I was like, there is no way I paid for my own college and I'm not going to use my degree then out in the workforce. And I love people. So that's how I wound up becoming a financial planner, because I could work with people but also use my degree.
Now, before the show, you mentioned that you have a 3.5-month-old child.
Bridget Marie.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And when should parents start planning financial support for their children?
Sure. Well, I think it's really a personal choice, because I know parents feel a lot of guilt when it comes to that they couldn't do more. I always tell people that if you're able to provide your children what you had or more than what you had, well, then you've accomplished the American dream. But you cannot do anything different than where you're currently at. So certainly, I think it's better to start saving before, and maybe it's for different intentions, but then when the child comes, you just shift those dollars to be saved then for your children in college planning afterwards.
Okay. So why did you choose financial planning as a career path?
So it was funny. One of my girlfriends when I was in college said to me, Julie, you've got to go on these interviews because they're asking me all these questions and this is you, this is not me. And I was just like, oh. I was a sales support person at R.R. Donnelley as my internship the year before I graduated. And I knew at that time I wanted to do something that had to do with sales, outside sales. And so I started going on all the interviews of, oh, let's sell elevators and wine and, you know, Xerox machines and then the financial services. And I narrowed down that I really wanted to go in the financial services sector. And I actually found a company that would allow me to build my own client base, that I owned the clients, not them. And so it enabled me at age 22 to be an entrepreneur, but also have the backing of a large company that was going to help to launch me in my career.
So when you left this company and started your own, well, when did you leave the company and start your own company?
Yep, so I incorporated in October of 2000, and that's when I created, at that time it was DC Financial, which is today JMC Wealth Management.
And any particular reason why? Oh, it's your initials,
Yeah.
JMC. You got it.
I had a branding person told me that I need to own the greatness of what I do, and I needed to put that in my company name.
Okay. And how has your financial service career impacted the rest of your life?
Immensely. You know, initially I'd always thought that I was going to be a mom, and I went into owning my own business so that if I needed to see people at night, then I could watch my kids during the day while my husband, you know, worked. And actually how it's all turned out, my husband is an at-home dad. Mm-hmm. And I run a successful company. I'm at home at dinner with my children, and I don't work Fridays because I don't want to have someone else raising my children and me not know who they are. So owning my own company has allowed me the space to be able to really live the quality of life that I want to live, which is what I teach.
And what was the purpose behind writing your book, The Emotion Behind Money?
That is very funny because so many people are like, you have to put your story to a book. And I'm like, I was a finance major. I wasn't an English major. Why would I want to write a book? And then I told my mother, Mom, I'm thinking I'm writing a book. And she goes, you? Mom was an English teacher.
Yeah.
And I was the hell child who she had to stay up all night. You know, and I go, Mom, I have a graduate degree now. I've learned how to write. I'm not the 7-year-old who you're trying to teach.
What's your graduate degree in?
I actually got my MBA at Notre Dame so that I could learn to run the business more effectively.
Like an entrepreneurial?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I did the executive program that's here in Chicago through Notre Dame.
And now your client base, is it more entrepreneurs like yourself? Is it people working for Fortune 100 or 500 companies? My
ideal clients, what I find is they're split into two categories. One, they're what I call the income affluent, who are those that are my age, in their 30s and 40s, who don't necessarily have the higher net worth, but they're, what I find, it's more of the psychographics that I work with than the demographics, because they either are entrepreneurial minded, so they may be an executive inside a mid-size or small-size company, or they are the entrepreneur themselves. And then what I found is that I naturally got referred to all their parents over time. So I have those pre-retirees or just retired people who are the other segment of my client base.
And so how does the advice differ from someone in their 30s and 40s versus a pre-retiree?
Well, it's really all about what your dreams and desires are and creating the quality of life that you want. So what I find is that there's patterns, that it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your income, it matters of what your dreams and desires are. And that, so you find patterns with people. So for example, you've always got the husband who's sitting there that doesn't want the wife to buy any more shoes. And then you have the wife that wants the husband to release the reins on the credit card, you know, or something of that nature.
Or for him to stop buying tools and equipment.
Right. Or midlife crisis with cars. That's the one that comes up. Or Harley Davidson.
Yeah.
That's the ones that's coming up a lot with the baby boomers these days.
Yeah.
They have that little bucket of money that they want to save for the Harley.
It used to be the Corvette in the 70s and 80s.
Today it's the Harleys.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I find that it's really about, I go back to the quality of life. So it doesn't matter how many zeros you have in your income or your assets. We all truly, at the end of the day, if you really peel the onion, we want to be happy. Mm-hmm. So it's about how do you create a financial plan that's going to create the happiness that you want in life.
Okay, and so is that the emotions behind the money?
Absolutely.
And what other emotions besides happiness is behind money?
Well, I find what you have to do is you have to meet yourself where you're at. So if you have a lot of your financial cash flow going to pay for all your past choices, so you have a lot of debt, then I find that people are very sad about their money situation, or frustrated, or they feel like they've been victimized by this last market downturn because they got laid off. Or
how about Madoff's scandal?
Absolutely.
Have you had any clients hurt by the Madoff scandal?
I actually got referred to somebody who was, and they are now a client. And it's really, really sad what that man has done, because it's broken the confidence that people have in just the financial services sector, and for good reason. And that's where I always tell people that if you really want to have somebody to operate as your advocate, the consumer is a part of the problem too, because they're not paying people to be their advocate. Most people in the financial services sector get paid by selling product, and that automatically doesn't make an advocacy relationship. So it's kind of like a CPA. If somebody's going to do your taxes, do my taxes and I'll pay you a fee. No different than planning, that if you really want somebody to do planning that's not biased, well, you have to pay them a fee to do that, because money's energy.
Now, and that's an important point. We'll get back to that in a little bit.
Sure.
But is there anything that our audience can do to protect themselves from being taken in, like by someone like Bernie Madoff?
Absolutely. So you really want to be careful when you have somebody. You never ever want to write a check to an individual or a firm. You know, for, like, if you're going to take $100,000 and invest it, you shouldn't be writing that check to an individual. I mean, that's part of the problem. Now, there are certain ways that some of these scams can have you make it to the LLC and things of that nature, and you just have to make sure that they're well-established firms that you can track history with. It is amazing to me.
But wasn't Bernie Madoff one of the most respected individuals on Wall Street?
Right, but you can't tell me that a person's intuition wasn't, well, why are these statements not adding up? Or what's happened is that people are too busy today to take fiscal responsibility and seeing that things are not connecting from one end to the other. And I think that's a lot where the consumer also needs to take a proactive role in saying, okay, I don't like this. I am not seeing from A to Z. And that's even getting worse with electronic statements.
Well, and that was my point, is a lot of times people don't understand their statements.
Right.
And would your clients bring statements to you when you interpret and explain it to them?
Absolutely. I've been hired numerous times to do an analysis to see if their financial planner is doing right by them.
And what do you usually find?
It depends. Sometimes I've found people who are just clearly churning and burning a person's account, and I show them where, and I show them in the prospectus what to look for, and this is how it's happening. But to me, if the financial products that you've bought are accomplishing the goal that you want for your life, then it's okay that you bought those products. But it's not okay if it's not accomplishing what it is that you desire to have in your life.
Mm-hmm. Now, previously you said money is energy. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So I always say money comes from the word currency, and currency comes from the word current. And what does a current do? It flows. Mm-hmm. And so I always tell people, look at how your money flows. Is it a positive flow? Is it a negative flow? Is it something that excites you, or does it depress you? Is it something that pulls the wind out of your sails, or you're like, woohoo, here we go? And obviously today we have many more people who are deflated from their cash flow. And that's where the first step I always do with people is I say, take the word budget out of your vocabulary, because a budget tells us that we have to put a lid on your life and you can't have things. Well, most of us here in America don't want to be told we can't have things. We have a certain sense of entitlement. And with that, that's why I say look at your flow. Then you don't feel like you're depriving yourself. Mm-hmm. Think of it like if you love Oreo cookies and you go on a diet.
I'm the wrong person to say that
to. Well, let's just suppose that if you loved Oreo cookies and then you said, okay, I'm not going to have them at all, and I'm not going to eat them, and then in about 6 weeks you're going to binge and you're going to eat half the bag of cookies. Mm-hmm. Okay? Well, your money works the exact same way, where people keep repeating the patterns of their past and keep repeating the stuff that's creating hardship in their life. It's because they're not shifting the behavior that's creating it in the first place.
Well, Sigmund Freud said that he referred to those repetitive patterns as repetitive compulsions or repetitive obsessions.
Right, which is why I always say that you have to reward yourself along the way for shifting in the direction that you want. So for an example, if you get a tax refund or a bonus at work, take a third of it, pay off your debt to clean up your past. Take a third of it, spend it on something today and go have fun with it and don't regret it. And then take the other third and plan for your future. And if you're always constantly cleaning up your past but living today and rewarding yourself, but also planning for the future, That I have found has been the system that really creates financial peace in your life.
And do people ask you what direction the economy is going to go?
All the time.
All right.
And I always say, if I knew, then I would be the multi-billionaire that has figured that out. But there are certain tell signs, obviously. I personally feel that we have a lot of cleanup to still go. And there is a lot of things that can tip the apple cart right now. And I don't believe that most people have shifted for our financial world to clean up in this country. And I really hope we continue to keep making the right decisions that will help put us in a good position.
When you say people have shifted, are you talking about our political leaders, our financial leaders? Is that where we need to make the shift?
Well, so what's very interesting to me, I noticed in the last market downturn, is that the companies that you found in the news that had dysfunctional financials and the companies were falling apart, the exact same thing, my clients who are executives in those companies, their personal financials are a mess. So it is no surprise to me that the governmental agencies or the corporations are a mess that they work for, because they're taking what they know on a personal standpoint and then they're bringing that into the political atmosphere or the corporations, municipalities, and that's why we have the dysfunction. It starts on the personal financials.
And I agree. So just like individuals can have repetitive patterns, so too can local governments,
Absolutely.
federal governments, and large corporations.
Right. And we as a community, as Americans, need to shift. You know, and we all need to shift in our own backyard, and that will create the big shift that needs to happen financially in this country.
Well, I know there's a big push towards like green products and green companies. Do you find some of your clients are actually looking for green investments?
Yes, the challenge out there is that there's not enough history with those type of companies, and there's not enough money managers that will manage. So I find that mostly you find those type of investments more in the private equity sector, you know, because there are more companies that are much younger than a company like GM or GE or Pepsi or Coke.
Well, this question is for Michael, our director.
All right.
When I told him we had a financial planner, he said, "Oh well, ask her if there's any mutual funds you'd recommend."
Oh well, so in my industry, that's taboo to give recommendations if I don't know the specific person's.
Okay, but do you recommend mutual funds?
It depends on the client. Is it a part of what I've recommended for people in the past? Yes, but for a sophisticated investor, you may not need a money manager to be able to do that for you.
Okay.
You know, it really just depends on your unique situation.
So what's the advantage of mutual funds?
The advantage of mutual funds is diversification.
Okay, so you
lower
your risk.
You lower your risk, and you're able to depend on somebody that may have a skill set that you don't have. Mm-hmm. So if you don't want to manage and read all the prospectuses and do all that yourself, well, mutual funds are a way for the average person to be able to do that. But understand that there's a cost for that. A lot of people talk about the fees on mutual funds, and I always say, well, do you expect them to work for free? You can't. Now, certainly they have to be competitive, and certainly, you don't want somebody to rob somebody from a fee perspective, but you also have to, you pay for what you get.
Now, it's often recommended people meditate like 20 minutes a day, exercise 40 minutes, 4 times a week. You know what question I'm going to ask is, how much time should people invest in their personal finance each day?
Do I think that it's a specific time? I really think it's about what you desire. But you do have to people today are not taking the time to even balance their checkbooks anymore. I rarely meet somebody who balances their checkbook these days.
I have an MBA from Loyola, and it's funny, my accounting professor said, I can't get my checkbook to balance.
Right. Well, nobody does that. And I think what's happening today is that people are overwhelmed. Yeah. And so the key is how do you, the way you can start taking...
But money is important, as you say. Money is energy.
Money is what runs our world.
Yeah.
And people need to take it more seriously, because you can't continue to lift up this carpet and stick your head in the sand. The average person cannot afford to do that any longer.
Why not?
Because it's creating the multitude of the dysfunction that we have financially in this country.
Well put. Well stated. Now, a friend of mine, she was a former corporate officer, and she talked about this. One of her employees would come to work an hour early every day and work on his personal finances, and within like 5 or 10 years, he built up, you know, $1 million in equity.
Yep.
And this is probably the 70s or the 80s. How much time do you spend personally just on your own personal finance?
Well,
You know, a week, a day, a week.
certainly. So I depend on people as well. You know, recently in the last couple of years, I've actually hired somebody to actually run my cash flows, just like a company has bookkeepers running their cash flows.
What would be the title of that person, or
A bookkeeper.
A bookkeeper. Okay.
Yeah, I use a company here locally called Narita Co. And
for your company?
for personal finances.
Okay.
All she does is personal finance bookkeeping. Particularly, her company works with people who have long-term care issues, so the children can't take over the parents' cash flows, so her company will go in. But she also works with very busy professionals and runs and operates that. So where I spend the time in managing my money situation is that I am more of the manager of what's going on, but I'm not doing the dailiness of those things underneath.
So besides the bookkeeper, who else or what else are you managing?
Well, so then I also have money managers that I've hired to manage portions of my portfolio.
Okay.
Because I stopped managing my, now I watch what they do, you know, and I also have a theory that it's very important for me to invest in every single thing that I recommend to other people to invest in. So that way I've got skin in the game. I think that's really important.
Well, it's very moral and ethical, and I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Now, what about spouses? You know, like sometimes, like the man will just take care of the finances, and or the husband and the wife doesn't, or vice versa.
Sure.
What do you recommend for couples who have, you know, basically one pot they're drawing from?
Well, and certainly, again, it goes back to a system that works for you. I have some clients that what they do is they each have their own separate checking accounts, but they have a joint one that they run all the, you know, household expenses out of. But older couples tend to only have one. Younger couples tend to have two, and then an operating account. That's what I find. And I just think you have to participate in it and enough to know, even if I encourage spouses, if I have one spouse that really is financially involved, they come to the quarterly meetings, but then the spouse then only comes like once a year.
What quarterly meetings?
Quarterly meetings that I have with clients.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right. So I make sure that I at least see the other spouse once a year, because it's important for that spouse to at least know the advisors. I've seen a lot of women after a divorce don't know what to do financially because they've just left it up to
they don't know
their
where the
husbands.
assets are.
Or their husbands die, and it's like, you need to know at least who to call.
Yeah.
So many women, again, lift up the carpet, stick their head in the sand, and don't even know, like, what's the brokerage account? And then all of a sudden, they wind up divorced one day. And I had one woman whose husband moved everything to Venezuela accounts because that's where he was from, and she didn't have anything here, and so got nothing. And he makes over $500,000 a year.
Wow.
And it's really sad. And it's because she chose to not be in any of those meetings. She chose to not be present.
And had she gone to those meetings, what would you have told her?
She would at least have known where the numbers were, or at least ask questions that would pique her interest. The questions that she's now asking after the fact. You know, you need to be a participant to a certain degree. Not necessarily an active participant daily, you know, but at least, you know, once a year, get in on the tax filing conversation, or even if it bores the heck out of you. I have my husband stop. My husband hates doing that stuff. And I'm like, but you need to know where things are at. You know, we have a few properties. You know, I have a business. You need to know how it's all flowing.
Is your husband in the financial service industry?
No, he's an at-home dad.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he's raising our children.
Okay.
Thank God.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned the quarterly meetings. How long do your quarterly meetings last?
I think it's more interesting to not come from how long do they last, but what I find that when you're talking about the emotion behind money, that very little of that time is dealt with the numbers, and more is about what their personal strategy is, and are the financials that they have in place supporting that personal strategy. So you spend 15 or 20 minutes on the actual numbers, And the rest is all about strategic planning of going, okay, now this product is supporting this that you want to do in your life, and this product is supporting this, and this is doing that.
When you say this product, can you give some examples of those products?
So I'll ask people, life insurance is a great example. I'll ask people, why did you buy this life insurance? I don't know, this guy just sold it to me. I go, well, if you don't know the purpose that it serves for you, how do you know that you have the right thing of what you want it to do for you? And
or people's purposes change.
Correct.
They might bought the life insurance
when they
20
were
years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's a great example because many people today have life insurance policies they bought when they were young, and there's hybrid contracts today that are out there that combine life insurance and long-term care so you can have the same dollars that cover two things. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have to go and buy another policy when you're in your mid-60s or mid-50s down the road. And that's really important, I think, for people to start ask, does this, fill my needs today?
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to change. A lot of people won't change their stuff because well, I was told I should never change this. But it doesn't serve you today. And you're spending a lot of money doing it. Is it worth it to you? And it's about making these subconscious things that are financially going on, bring them to the conscious level and make conscious choices.
What age are you going to start teaching your children about
I already am. My son will be 2 on June 30th, and he's already learning when we go into Target, he goes straight over for the toys. And so it starts right from the get-go.
What can you teach a 2-year-old?
Well, it's about that. Well, this is not what we came to the store for today. Here's the stuff on the list that we came to the store for. And I've already got in my mind, I said to my husband, when he's old enough to actually know what money is and say, okay, well, here's your budget, here's your number that you have, and you work within that number of if you want something from here, but you have to choose that that's your priority as opposed to something else. As opposed to today, what's happening to a lot of children is that I think the parents are working so much that they make up for that lack of presence physically in their lives, that they're making up by throwing money and iPods and everything else at their kids. I think there's a subconscious guilt going on.
Or just keep them busy.
Right, right. And it's creating a beast of a sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
You talk to many entrepreneurs and they say that a lot of the young people who are coming into the marketplace today to work, they are expecting $70,000 salaries and they don't understand why they're just not getting it today. And, it's like, it's not that you can't have that, but how do you get to where you want to be?
Have you read any of the children's book about finance and money?
No, I haven't.
I recommend that to you.
I believe that I have a children's book inside of me.
I was going to say that to you.
I'm very hesitant to read anyone else's material before I produce what it is that I feel that I'm supposed to create.
Well, I think you should, so this way you don't duplicate anybody. You're very original, and I'm sure you'd come up with your own unique ideas as you have throughout this interview. We have like a minute and a half.
Sure.
What point that do you want to make that we haven't covered yet, please?
That you can choose to start wherever you're at. That wherever your ground is right now, it's about taking money, clean up your past while living in the present moment, and plan for your future all simultaneously.
And you mentioned those patterns. Would cleaning up the past also meaning pay off debt and breaking the patterns that led to the debt?
Mm-hmm. And even if that means closing down the credit accounts, which is a scary place for a lot of people to be.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the discipline to keep going back to your past, maybe the best thing to do is to not have them.
Okay. Any other tips besides cutting the credit cards up?
I think it's just about choice, that you really have to believe you have a choice. And choose the life that you desire and don't blame it on anyone else.
Well, I'm getting a signal to wrap it up. Well, for more information about Julie Murphy Casserly, the JMC Wealth Management Company, stay tuned to the credits at the end. Until next time, we wish you good health, good spirits, and of course, good fortune. Julie, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jay.
For more information about this show, our guests, Infinity Foundation, or any of our other programs, please visit our website, infinityfoundation.org, or call us at 847-831-8828.